the Lord of Deadside, Shadowborn at the confluence of worlds to walk between. Lifeside is without the meaning that my partly living possesses here in Deadside, where the darkness is manifest at the edges of reason. As a god, I step forth upon the writhing, separating surface of the Deadside serpent. What sleep is here? What dreams there are in the unctuous coilings of the snake's mortal shuffling. Weapon in my hand, the arcing death blow at the end of all things. The horror, I embrace it.
Shadowman is loosely based off the comic book series and introduces Mike Lara, a student with heavy gambling debts. Unable to repay them, his parents and younger brother are murdered. He then meets Mama Nettie, a voodoo priestess, and agrees to become an instrument of power. She implants a mask of shadows into his chest, transforming him into Shadowman and allowing him to walk in both worlds, the land of the living, life side, and the land of the dead, dead side. One night, Nettie has a dream that a man called Legion is planning to use 5 serial killers to harvest dark souls in Deadside to create an army of immortal warriors intent on bringing about the apocalypse in Lifeside. She tasks Mike to travel to Deadside and collect the souls before the 5 do and stop Legion.
The end is sooner than you think.
Come to mama, baby.
Hey there, space cadet.
Damn, beautiful friend.
There's a darkness coming.
What's the problem, Magneta?
I had a dream, Shadowman. A real bad dream. A Deadside dream. The 5 are here. The heralds of the apocalypse. Beacon's file confirms everything I feared. The end's coming, Shadowman. An ancient prophecy tells of the return of a great evil to Deadside. A terrible force gathering dark souls to its darker heart and using their power to cross over into this world and bring about apocalypse.
I must stop this evil from bringing about the end of all things.
Only you can do it, Shadowman. You are the walker between the worlds. I can't go Deadside, and Jaunty's next to useless in both worlds. You are the only one who can do anything about this.
As it ever was.
But you ain't never confronted anything like this evil. It's so pure, not even the ancient protectors of the dark souls could destroy it. They could only banish it from Deadside. They knew it'd come back one day, hence the prophecy telling of its return. The power of the ancients is all but gone now, and the dark souls that evil desires lie unprotected. What you gotta do, Shadowman, is to go Deadside and recover the dark souls. Take them into your own protection before evil gathers them to its terrible heart.
Okay, so let me get this straight. If I don't recover these dark souls, then the world's gonna end. Am I right?
You got it.
Shit.
Look, I gotta go. I've got a lot to do. Take Deacon's file and meet me at dawn at the church on the hill. I've kept your stuff safe for you.
In the opening cutscene, we see Legion recruit Jack the Ripper to build his Cathedral of Pain, the asylum in Deadside. This tower is the source of everything bad that will happen. You can't fault the story. It is interesting and exciting. It feels suitably end of the world and deals with very adult themes throughout. Take the 5 serial killers, for example. The 5 men who Legion has decided to use all come with interesting backstories told through cutscenes, meetings with Shadowman, and written reports. You won't need to have read the comics to understand what happened to Mike or why Nettie has so much control of him, as it's all pretty much explained by narration and conversations with Nettie and Jaunty.
Michael, over here with you. Hello there, Michael. How's that treating you?
Jaunty, kindly refer to me as Shadowman. Michael Lavoie has no place here in Deadside.
Whatever, Mick, it's good to see you again. Seems like simply ages since I last set me eyes on your happy, smiling mug.
The feeling's mutual.
I suppose you've been away dallying with the old battle axe, giving her one with some of that righteous voodoo so she can stay forever young?
Something like that.
She's been filling your head with her fated pillow talk again, I bet. Doomsday in an army giddy until you're drunk with the stuff.
She did happen to mention a certain prophetic dream she's been having.
Did she now? Well, for once I think the owl witch might be right. See that bloody big black tower yonder?
How could I miss it?
Well, old Bruegel, the medieval painter blokey, was just telling me the other day that he thought it looked remarkably like a picture he once did.
Is that Peter Brigel?
No, Seamus, his distant Irish cousin. Anyways, he was quite shocked, so he was, at the terrible mess that bloody thing's making. Appearing out of nowhere and tearing its way through the place like there's no tomorrow. Which, given what Nettie's saying, might not be too far from the truth.
Any idea what's going on in there?
Nope, and I shan't be knocking on the front door to find out neither. All I'll say is, if there's something wicked heading this way, it'll be coming from in there.
Interactive conversations are few and far between. Most things are trying to kill you, but the ones that you do have are excellent. The standout stuff comes from Jaunty, a snake with a human skull for a head. He wears a top hat, a monocle, and speaks in a very strong Irish accent. He also loves to wind up Shadow Man. On the flip side, the conversations that you do have with the Five before it descends into boss battles are very apocalyptic. They are a terrifying bunch with no remorse for their crimes, bearing in mind you meet 3 of them locked up in prison. Unsurprisingly, they have overrun the prison and are involved in a siege. The other 2 members of the Five are still out there plying their trades. This is the end, beautiful friend. The overarching villain, Legion, is left vague and for good reasons. His character turns out to be effectively the devil and acts as a puppet master throughout. He controls the Five and is using them to further his own plans. Shadow Man looks great. In Liveside, Louisiana, Bayou feels swampy, and the harsh environments of Deadside looks cold and unfriendly. The Paths of Shadows, as they are known, are ancient with pools of blood, the temples where Shadow Man receives upgrades filled with traps, while the Asylum is a hulking great machine with running engines and jets of steam erupting everywhere. Everywhere feels fresh, and even though you'll visit Asylum several times, each visit reveals more disturbing rooms each time, such as the playrooms. That same variety is sadly lacking in the enemies though. The Paths of Shadow have the same basic enemies. In fact, there are only about 4 variations throughout. The same goes for the enemies found throughout the Asylum areas. They all look exactly the same except for their choice of weapon, be it hooks, a rifle, a chainsaw, etc. It's very disappointing and not easy to understand why the creators got so lazy. And by the time you come up against a fight properly, you'll have taken to running past most enemies rather than actually fighting. However, the 5 do make for good boss battles though, and their defeats feel well earned. When you first meet them, Mike is human, as his powers won't work during the day and there's no chance of the battle being won. So when you do get to cast a spell that brings night and get back to them, you'll take serious pleasure in dishing out punishment. That's if you can find them. You see, the biggest criticism that can be directed at Shadow Man is how easy it is to get lost. The game is non-linear and encourages a lot of backtracking and revisiting areas later in the game. Mike has his basic Shadow Man skills at the beginning, but as you progress, new abilities and skills can be unlocked and found. This sort of leveling up is done well and gives a great visual indication by titling Mike with red markings. The upgrades range from allowing them to grip hot surfaces to being able to swim in lava. As well, there are a number of weapon style items that also unlock doors and passages. As you move through areas, you'll pass a lot of paths that are non-traversable until you find an item later in the game. There are so many that keeping track of them all can be quite difficult. Exploration is hugely important as Dark Souls, the items Mike needs to progress, are hidden all around. There are 120 Dark Souls to collect. Not all are needed to finish the game, but collecting all 120 will reward you with something pretty cool.
Dark Souls are, yes. Dark Souls. I embrace it.
Depending upon your choice of system, the controls range from good to average. For example, the PlayStation controls are good, but the game looks terrible. The Dreamcast controller is not very comfortable, and on PC it's pretty straightforward. The inventory system is clear and easy to use, and allowing Mike to hold a different item in each hand was a nice touch. And then we have the travelling system. Unfortunately, you may find yourself battling the camera, as it sometimes takes on a life of its own and swings about wildly. This is often at its worst when you're trying to swim through small areas, but it's mostly manageable. Shadow Man deals with themes that appeal to the darker side of thinking. Its dark story and adult gameplay was the reason why many will have picked it up in the first place. I personally love the game, hence the reason I strive to find the best version, and it is a great game let down by minor issues. It's hard to talk negatively about a game that encourages such exploration, but the lack of any indication of where you should go, instead relying on your own memory, is harsh. A menu map would have at least helped. Also, the poor variety in enemies becomes more noticeable very early on. However, Shadow Man has a gripping story with interesting characters that force you to see it through to the very end.